Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're tackling youth mental health and employment, and I'm really excited to dig into this one.
Yeah, me too. It's a really fascinating area with so much happening right now.
Absolutely. So we've got a whole stack of research projects to go through, some program proposals, and even a few case studies from universities that are doing some pretty cool things.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to be looking at how technology and emotional intelligence training can really help equip young people, with all the skills they need to kind of navigate the challenges they face.
Yeah, exactly. And those challenges come up everywhere, right? In education and employment, and even when they're interacting with like law enforcement or the healthcare system.
It's about giving them the tools to confidently interact with all these different systems and institutions.
I think that's a perfect way to put it. And before we get too deep into it, I just have to share this stat because it really blew me away. Did you know that there is a program in South Yorkshire that saw a 30% reduction in classroom conflicts just by teaching kids emotional intelligence skills?
Yeah, that's incredible, right? And it really highlights the power of giving young people those skills early on.
It makes you wonder why this isn't happening everywhere, right? But okay, let's back up for a second for anyone who might not be familiar with the term. Can you give us a quick rundown of what emotional intelligence, or EI, actually is?
Sure. So emotional intelligence is essentially the ability to understand and manage your own emotions and also to recognize and effectively respond to the emotions of others.
Okay, so it's not just about being in touch with your own feelings, but also being able to understand and empathize with what other people are going through.
Exactly. And that's such a crucial skill for young people, especially as they're navigating all these complex social situations at school, at work, in their personal lives.
I can see how that would play a huge role in their ability to build healthy relationships and communicate effectively.
Absolutely. It's about self-awareness,
Yeah.
empathy, effective communication, all of these things that are essential for success in pretty much every aspect of life.
And I'm seeing a lot here about programs that are specifically designed to teach these EI skills. One that caught my eye is this one called Enhancing Youth Engagement through Emotional Intelligence.
Oh yeah, that one's really interesting.
Yeah.
What I find fascinating is how they've broken it down into modules for different age groups.
Yeah.
So you have one for 12 to 14-year-olds, another for 15 to 18, and then 18 to 21.
It makes sense, right? I mean, the challenges and developmental needs of a 13-year-old are going to be pretty different from those of a 20-year-old.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about this program. They've really tailored the content to meet those specific needs. So for the younger teens, it's about building a foundational understanding of emotions and how they impact behavior.
So like recognizing what anger feels like or what sadness feels like and understanding how those emotions might lead to certain actions.
Exactly. And then as they get older, the program goes deeper into things like conflict resolution, stress management, even how to advocate for yourself effectively in different situations.
I'm really intrigued by these interactive activities they use, like role-playing scenarios with teachers and even police officers.
Oh yeah, those are powerful. Because it's one thing to read about these skills in a textbook, but it's another thing entirely to actually practice them in a safe environment.
Right. It gives them a chance to apply what they're learning and actually experience those real-world interactions firsthand.
And it helps them build empathy, right? Because they're literally stepping into someone else's shoes and seeing things from their perspective.
I can see how that would be so valuable, especially when it comes to interacting with figures of authority like teachers and police officers.
Exactly. And, the goal is to build trust and reduce conflict between young people and these institutions, which ultimately leads to better outcomes for everyone.
Makes sense. So what kind of results are they seeing with this approach? Is it actually making a difference?
Oh, absolutely. There's this pilot program they did in South Yorkshire, and the results are pretty compelling.
Okay, lay it on.
Well, they saw an 85% increase in young people feeling confident talking to teachers about their concerns. And on the flip side, teachers reported a 30% reduction in classroom conflicts stemming from miscommunication.
Wow, those are some serious numbers.
It's proof that these skills can have a real impact, not just on individual well-being, but also on the overall climate of a school or a workplace.
It makes you wonder why this type of program isn't more widespread.
But okay, let's move on to another key aspect we see throughout these sources, and that's technology. This research project on mental health technology and this platform called B-Spatial is super interesting.
Yeah, B-Spatial is doing some really innovative stuff. It's basically this digital platform delivered through virtual reality that offers all these different features to help young people build resilience and navigate the complexities of life.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued. So we're talking gamified challenges, podcasts, learning modules, all customized to support their mental health and well-being. Exactly. And what's really cool is how they're approaching the research behind it. They're doing testing within the platform itself, using data analytics to track how users interact with everything, and then using that information to constantly refine and improve the experience.
So it's a constantly evolving system that's learning and adapting based on real user feedback.
Exactly. But they're not just relying on digital data. They also have these physical research hubs where they conduct focus groups and observe people interacting with the VR experiences.
So it's like a combination of cutting-edge technology and good old-fashioned human interaction.
Right, because you need both to get a complete picture of how this technology is impacting people.
And I see they're collaborating with a wide range of stakeholders too, schools, universities, employers, local authorities. Why is that collaborative approach so important?
Because it ensures that B-Spatial is actually meeting the needs of the community. By working directly with educators, employers, and people who are on the front lines, they're getting valuable input and feedback every step of the way.
So it's not just a bunch of tech people sitting in a room designing something in isolation. They're actually going out and talking to the people who will be using it.
Exactly. And that's what makes me optimistic about this project. They're not just focused on the technology itself, but also on how it can be integrated into real-world settings.
And it sounds like their pilot programs are already showing some promising results too. Decreased stress levels, increased emotional awareness among participants.
That's right. And I think what's so exciting about B-Spatial is that it's addressing a crucial gap in mental health support, especially for young people who might be hesitant to seek help through traditional channels.
It's like meeting them where they are using the tools and technologies that are already a part of their lives.
Exactly. And that's why I think this 6-month research study they're planning is so important, because it's going to give us even more data on how effective B-Spatial can be.
And that research is tied to this grant application we have here, right? The one focused on using B-Spatial to support employed, unemployed, and disadvantaged youth.
Exactly. So this research study is all about gathering the evidence needed to show that B-Spatial can make a real difference in the lives of young people.
Okay, so we've covered emotional intelligence in this awesome VR platform, but what about the real world? How are universities already using B-Spatial to support their students?
Oh, that's where it gets really exciting. We're starting to see some really cool real-world applications. For example, the University of Sheffield has been using B-Spatial's podcasts and journaling challenges to help ease the transition for first-year students.
I can see how that would be super helpful. Starting university is such a huge life change, and it can be overwhelming even for students who are typically very well adjusted.
Totally. And then you have Sheffield Hallam University using B-Spatial to address burnout in postgraduate students. They're providing targeted content on time management and building emotional resilience, which are essential skills for anyone juggling a demanding workload.
It's great to see how adaptable the platform is. They're not just using a one-size-fits-all approach, but really tailoring the content to the specific needs of each group.
Exactly. And what really impressed me was the collaboration between the two universities. They actually used data from B-Spatial to identify common stressors among their students, and then they developed joint support programs.
That's amazing. So they're not just using B-Spatial in isolation, but actually leveraging the data to inform their overall approach to student well-being.
Right. It's about taking a holistic and data-driven approach to supporting young people.
It's inspiring to see how much progress is being made, but of course there's always more to explore. We still need to unpack how B-Spatial can specifically address the needs of those different groups of young people, employed, unemployed, disadvantaged.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole question of implementation. How do we actually get this technology into the hands of the people who need it most?
So many questions still to answer, but that's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
To dig deep and uncover those insights.
Exactly. So stay tuned, because in part 2, we're going to break down those sub-challenges and delve deeper into how B-Spatial can be used to support those specific groups of young people.
I can't wait. Let's do it. Welcome back for part 2. I feel like we ended on such a cliffhanger last time talking about how B-Spatial can support these different groups of young people.
Right. Yeah, we've got employed youth, unemployed youth, and then those facing even more challenges because of their background.
Each group has their own hurdles, but it sounds like B-Spatial is trying to offer solutions that are really tailored to those specific needs.
That's the goal. So maybe we could start with employed youth, those who are already working. So we're talking 16 to 21-year-olds who have jobs.
You might think, well, they have jobs, so what's the issue? But I know you're going to tell me there's more to it than that.
Of course. Having a job doesn't automatically mean you're free from anxieties and pressures, especially for young adults who are just starting out.
It's like a whole new world to navigate, right?
Yeah.
A new environment, new responsibilities, new expectations.
Exactly. You're figuring out where you fit in, dealing with maybe a demanding boss, trying to balance work and your social life. It can be a lot.
And there's that pressure to prove yourself, to perform, to meet those expectations.
That's where B-Spatial comes in, I think.
Yeah.
The grant proposal talks about how the platform can help young workers cope with those anxieties, build resilience, even navigate those tricky social dynamics that can make or break your experience.
It's like having a virtual mentor in your pocket to guide you through those situations and provide that extra support.
I like that analogy. Think about a VR simulation where you're dealing with a difficult customer or having to assert yourself in a meeting. B-Spatial lets you practice those scenarios in a safe environment.
It's like a dress rehearsal for real life. You can experiment, try different approaches, get feedback, all without the fear of messing up in the real world.
Exactly. And it's not just about supporting the individual employee. They also want to equip employers with tools and resources to create more mentally healthy workplaces.
So it's a two-way street. They're working with both sides of the equation.
Exactly. Training programs for managers, guides that help them understand the unique challenges young employees face. Strategies for creating a more inclusive and supportive culture.
That makes so much sense because at the end of the day, everyone benefits from a happier, healthier work environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's switch gears and talk about unemployed youth.
Right. So we've seen how B-Spatial can support those who are already employed. But what about those who are struggling to find work in the first place? That period after you finish school can be so daunting.
It really can. It's like you're thrown into this sea of uncertainty. You're facing competition, rejection, maybe self-doubt starts creeping in.
And there's this expectation that you're supposed to have it all figured out right. But in reality, most of us are just trying to find our footing.
Exactly. And those feelings of inadequacy or uncertainty can really spiral if they're not addressed.
Yeah.
That's why I like B-Spatial's approach. It's not just about mental health and isolation. It's about breaking down those practical barriers that are preventing young people from succeeding.
Okay, so give me some concrete examples. How does B-Spatial actually do that?
Yeah. Well, one way is through simulated work experiences in the VR environment. Imagine practicing job interviews or fine-tuning your resume, or even experiencing a typical day in a chosen profession.
It's like a virtual boot camp for the job market. They get to try things out, build those skills, gain confidence, all in a safe space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond just technical skills. They could also work on those soft skills that employers are always looking for. Teamwork, communication, problem-solving, adaptability.
Things that you can't really learn from a textbook, right? You need to practice them in a context that feels real.
And that's what B-Spatial offers. It's a bridge between the theoretical and the practical. Now let's move on to that third sub-challenge, supporting youth from disadvantaged communities.
Right. So now we're talking about young people who are facing multiple layers of challenges: poverty, discrimination, lack of access to resources. It's a whole different ballgame.
It really is. And all of those factors can have such a huge impact on mental well-being. It makes it that much harder to break free from those cycles of disadvantage.
It's like trying to run a race with weights strapped to your ankles.
Yeah.
You might have all the potential in the world, but those systemic barriers are holding you back.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And B-Spatial aims to level that playing field by addressing those specific challenges head-on.
Okay, I'm really interested to hear how they're approaching this.
Well, first and foremost, it's about equitable access to the platform itself. They're taking into account things like digital literacy language barriers, even just access to technology and the internet.
Because not everyone has a laptop and high-speed internet at home, right? Especially in disadvantaged communities.
Exactly. The proposal even talks about exploring offline versions of B-Spatial for those who might not have reliable internet access.
It's about meeting people where they are recognizing that one size doesn't fit all.
Right. And it goes beyond just access. It's also about creating content that's relevant and relatable to young people from diverse backgrounds, taking into consideration the unique stressors they face.
So it's not just a generic program. It's about offering a range of experiences and resources that actually resonate with their lived realities.
Exactly. And that's why collaboration with community organizations is so important. They're talking about working with local youth groups, mentors, employers who are committed to creating more inclusive workplaces.
It's about building a network of support that goes beyond the virtual world and extends into their real lives.
Right. B-Spatial, in this sense, becomes a catalyst for social mobility.
Huh.
It helps young people from disadvantaged backgrounds achieve greater success in life. It empowers them to not just survive, but to thrive.
It's a pretty powerful vision. But we've talked a lot about what B-Spatial aims to do. Now let's get into the how. How does this amazing technology actually get into the hands of the people who need it most?
That's the million-dollar question. And it all comes down to implementation. The partnerships, the funding models, the strategies for making B-Spatial a reality in schools, workplaces, community centers.
So many moving parts. So stay tuned because in part 3, we're going to dive into the nitty-gritty of B-Spatial's implementation strategy and explore how this platform could really change the landscape of youth mental health and employment. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive. It's been quite a journey exploring the world of youth mental health and employment.
Yeah, we've uncovered some really fascinating stuff, haven't we? From the power of emotional intelligence to this incredible VR platform, B-Spatial.
It feels like we've only just scratched the surface.
Exactly. There's so much potential here, and I'm really excited to see how it all unfolds.
Me too. Okay, so to recap, we've talked about the need for tailored support for employed youth, unemployed youth, and those facing additional challenges due to their background.
We've seen how B-Spatial can be adapted to meet those specific needs, offering everything from virtual job interview practice to resources for coping with workplace stress.
But now we need to talk about implementation, right? How do we actually get this amazing technology into the hands of the young people who need it most?
That's the million-dollar question. And it all comes down to having a solid plan, a strategy that takes into account all the complexities of the real world.
So where do we even begin? What are the key steps involved in making B-Spatial a reality on a larger scale?
Well, first and foremost, funding. You can't launch a sophisticated technology platform without significant resources.
Right. We can't just assume that schools and community centers will magically have the budget for this.
Exactly. So the grant proposal outlines a multi-pronged approach. They're looking at public funding sources, like government grants, and also exploring avenues for private investment.
So they're trying to diversify their funding streams to make the program more sustainable in the long run.
That's right. They're also really emphasizing the importance of strategic partnerships.
Makes sense. I mean, they can't do it alone, right? They need to collaborate with schools, universities, employers, mental health organizations, even local government agencies.
It's about creating a network, a whole ecosystem where everyone is working together towards this common goal of empowering young people.
I love that idea of an ecosystem. So paint me a picture. How might these partnerships actually work in practice?
Well, imagine schools integrating B-Spatial into their curriculum, maybe as part of career counseling, or even as a resource for mental health and wellness initiatives.
So students could have access to the VR modules, practice job interview skills, learn about different career paths, all within the school setting.
Right, and it could be especially impactful for students who might not have those resources available at home.
Exactly. And then you have employers who could use B-Spatial as part of their onboarding process or professional development programs.
New hires, especially young people just starting out, could use those virtual simulations to practice navigating workplace dynamics or communicating effectively with their colleagues.
It takes some of the pressure off those early days on the job and allows them to build confidence in a safe environment.
And of course, mental health organizations could integrate B-Spatial into their existing services, offering it as a complementary tool for young people who might benefit from that gamified interactive approach.
It sounds like B-Spatial has the potential to really enhance the support systems that are already in place.
That's the idea. But we also need to be realistic about the challenges of implementing a new technology platform.
Of course. It's not always going to be smooth sailing.
Right. There are practical considerations like training staff to use the technology, effectively ensuring data privacy and security, finding ways to integrate it into existing systems without overwhelming people.
And making sure it's truly accessible to everyone, regardless of their background or circumstances.
Exactly. So the grant proposal talks about starting with pilot programs in a few select locations.
That makes sense. It's a way to test the waters, gather feedback, iron out any wrinkles before rolling it out more widely.
Right. It's about being strategic and taking a measured approach.
And of course, throughout the process, they'll be collecting data, measuring outcomes, and making adjustments as needed.
It's an iterative process. You learn as you go and you adapt to ensure that the program is truly meeting the needs of the community.
It's encouraging to see that level of thoughtfulness and flexibility.
I agree. And I think it speaks to the commitment of everyone involved. They really want to make this work.
It's been such an incredible journey exploring this topic. I feel like we've gained so much insight into the challenges facing young people today and the innovative solutions that are emerging.
Me too. And it's clear that technology has a huge role to play in shaping a more supportive and equitable future.
If virtual reality can help us practice real-world scenarios, build confidence, and develop crucial skills, what other areas of life could benefit from this immersive approach?
That's the question we need to be asking ourselves. It's an exciting time to be working in this field.
It certainly is. We're on the cusp of something truly transformative, and I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Me neither.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure as always.
Likewise.
To all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those tough questions.
That's what keeps us moving forward.